Welcome back to Property Management Transform. I'm Fiona Blaney, your super coach. And this week, we're going to be taking our lessons from Sarah Bell of Brad Bell Real Estate and LinkLearn. We all know that conflict in property management, well, it's just an ever-present thing. But imagine if you could work to resolving, minimising, removing conflict to build greater relationships with your clients, your tenants, and of course, even your peers. Well, that's what Sarah Bell is here to take us through this week. Let's get cracking for our next session.
So in our first session, which I want to call Unpacking Conflict, the first thing I want to talk about is our attitudes and our beliefs about conflict, because they greatly impact our behaviour. And not just our behaviour as property managers, but the behaviour of our landlords and our tenants, right, when we're dealing with conflict. But conflict is a little bit heavier than a disagreement, and I'll show you why. Do you like my suit that I'm wearing today? I don't, not so much. I'm not sold on it. Not confident with my outfit choice today. So we're in disagreement, right, about my suit. Are we going to have a conflict about it? No. No, we're not. So conflict's not quite as simple as a disagreement, right? Conflict involves something a bit heavier than that. So what's conflict? When two countries go to war, what are they doing? Fighting. And I think that's our baseline understanding of what conflict is about. Yeah, it's combative and it's adversarial. It's not me just having a country perspective. That would be a great world to live in, but it's usually I'm right, you're wrong, I win, you lose. So that's the first thing that's underlying conflict in our, I guess, context, in our cultural understanding. So when we look at our context around conflict, we start off in a pretty awful position culturally, do you agree? Because it starts off as a fight and there's got to be a winner and a loser. And then when you look at the connotations that we have about winning and losing, suddenly winning is about pride and honour and goodness, and righteousness. And losing or conceding is about bad and about there's shame and there's dishonour about it. Our conflict resolution skills and I guess the professional obligation that we have to roll our sleeves up and deal with a mess, that's a huge part of our value moving forward. Tech's not going to disrupt that, because I think as more and more people, people don't want to deal with the mess in our culture, and they don't want to engage in that conflict because it's stressful and it's awkward. So professionally, one of the key value propositions that we have as property managers is to be really good at sorting out conflict. So what I've got up there is a model for understanding conflict. So this isn't a model for conflict resolution. This is how conflict happens. I think it's really important to understand this. It's not just conflict in property management. I want to actually take it out of property management so that we understand how conflict behaves, and then we can apply it to our worlds. So rather than academically go through each step, I'm going to tell a story about one of the most famous global conflicts of the past century, and we can see how it goes through, and learn a bit of history as well, because history's cool. So the first step is discomfort. Now I want to take everybody back to the middle of the 20th century during the Cold War, right? Half of the planet was undergoing a communist revolution, so that can be you guys, and the other half of the planet was the Western civilization. There was a discomfort between these two camps in the world, because communism is about the state owning, the wealth and distributing it equitably, and the Western world, we're all about being able to pursue private wealth freely. So there was a discomfort between these different ideologies, and that's where we started. In 1961, the Central Intelligence Agency from America launched or sponsored an invasion of Cuba, who had its communist revolution right on America's doorstep. And that was an incident that provoked, I guess, a lot of tension between these two countries, America and Cuba, but also between this bigger context of the world that had been split in half. So America lost, as it did a lot during the Cold War, and retreated. But what it did was it moved a bunch of missiles to Florida and pointed them straight at Cuba. Now, America to this day suggests that they did that defensively, right? That they were scared of retaliation from Cuba. So we have a misunderstanding here, because America said that they were defensive missiles. Cuba, having just suffered an incident of invasion, expected that they were actually assault missiles. So they got on the phone to the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union brought around the same missiles and parked them outside Cuba, and they were parked straight at the United States, which is our next step, right? Tension. For 13 days, the whole world watched while there were tense negotiations between Cuba and America with these ballistic missiles aimed at each other. And in each country, Kennedy and the president of Cuba, they both had their hands seriously hovering over the button, ready to destroy the world. Both countries had the technology to see when the other one had launched, so there was enough time to launch one of your own. And that was the crisis, right? No one could move forward, because as soon as they pushed the button, they knew they were going to be destroyed as well. But how do you back down? When you get to that tense level, how do you back down? And that's the last step, that's the crisis, and that's what we call the Cuban Missile Crisis. So that's how conflict works on a global level, right? That's how it behaves if it's not contained, if it's not controlled. And so eventually that was resolved. Kennedy made a declaration that they wouldn't invade Cuba unless they were provoked, and the Soviet Union took its missiles home. But we stood on the brink of absolute destruction based on discomfort and an incident, and it's a misunderstanding, and as tension built. So in a property management context, we can see how conflict might escalate for that as well. So I think with discomfort, tenants can feel a certain amount of discomfort knowing that you work for the owner. And so when there's a situation, an incident, say someone stops paying rent. We don't need a big incident, we don't need an invasion, right? It can just be someone stops paying rent and we've got an incident. Now, if we don't take any steps to understand that incident and we just do our robotic process, you send them the notice to leave. What if they stop paying rent because they were a domestic violence victim and they're waiting for some crisis assistance to help them through that period? No, I'm sorry, the procedure says we have to do your notice to leave. Right? Then we've got an incredible tension, and you're putting the tenant in a crisis situation where, they can't pay by the exit date. They can't go backwards. I mean, help's coming, it's on its way, but we haven't had any understanding, tension's built, and then we're going to be in a crisis. The tenant can't get out of this, so they abandon the property. We've got to deal with that. We're going to go to tribunal, we've got to find compensation. She doesn't have any money, she's moved interstate. We could have blocked this, couldn't we, at incident with a phone call. Let's work out some solution. I'm still going to give you the notice, darling, but let's work with you and try and get some consensus. So you can see how things, they escalate into crisis where they don't necessarily need to if they're controlled and managed. All right, understanding people and their behaviour. I thought it was really cool that you guys did the performance management profiles with agent dynamics. I've done similar things, and they're very insightful. Unfortunately, when we deal with people, we don't always get the opportunity to sit down and do a personality profile with them to work out, the best way to approach that situation. And people in conflict can behave really differently. It's important to realise, right, that you're either a party to a conflict or you're the platform for the conflict, right? Financial strain, emotional exhaustion, the fact that you've got, these homes. I think a lot of people think landlords are, these fat cat investors from overseas and all the rest of it, but a lot of them are really struggling mums and dads with mortgages, and so, and the stretch that they've made to buy the rental property, it represents sacrifice, it represents soccer games they couldn't go to because they had to work, family holidays they couldn't take. We've got a model now for how conflict works, and it's pretty straightforward model, isn't it? We saw how that led to the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we saw how that led to, property abandonment. It's a good model because it works for everything, and all those ingredients are present. But understanding people and how they behave in conflict is a really, really important skill. And it's not that difficult to learn when you can unlock it. Alrighty, so we've got this grid, and this is, when you're dealing with people in conflict, it's really important to understand the just the best and quickest way to communicate with them to get them involved and cooperating in the process. So someone that's really direct, they're not going to want to talk to you. They're not going to want to listen to you talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. They just want an answer. Yeah, so there's for that 86% of people, right? there's 4 main types of people in the world. I'm going to understand that. The first ones, I'm going to wreck this. They watch ABC News, right? They would have loved Robert's email because it's direct and to the point. I'm a bit like this when I'm a consumer, right? We're buying a minivan at the moment, right? Me and my billion children. It feels like thousands of them sometimes. And I don't want to know a lot of stuff. Like, I just want it to be black and easy to clean with cup holders. I don't care how big the wheelbase is. I don't care about that. I don't even care about the fuel economy because I don't drive that much. Just cup holders. Once I've got that covered, I'm done, right? Nice and direct. And price. That's direct guy. He watches ABC News. Over here, we've got this guy. And they watch The Voice, right? Because you think The Voice is a singing show, right? It's got nothing to do with singing. It's about how well you can sing if your dog's got cancer, isn't it? It's the backstory, they want to know the narrative and all the hard luck stuff. And that's important. These people like meaning and they like emotion, they like narrative. Now down here, you've got people that like Disney movies. Yeah? And they like Disney movies because everything's really predictable, right? Except for Frozen, right? The guy gets the girl, and everything works out okay. You know, the witch perishes, the monster is defeated, all the rest of it, and they want everything to go to plan. All right, this is an anxious type of client. And then over here, this is my husband. Air crash investigations. Yeah. He watches marathons of this before we fly anywhere. Because I don't want to know, right? I've got no control over the plane. If it's crashing, I'm surrendered. But they want to go through everything, right? They want you to account for your bill. They want to see every little thing that you've done. Send me all the emails, you know? How would each of these people behave in conflict in the property management context? These guys, you ring a landlord who's direct and you want to tell them about the tenant's got an issue with their, kid at school and the dog's, late for his pet psychology appointment this week and stuff like that. Landlord's not listening, hey. They just want to know that you're competent and everything's under control, isn't it? They want a story, they want to understand, they want to make meaning from the situation. These guys are very nervous about what could happen, right? So we want to be focusing on the process all the time and what they can expect. Yeah, we know what happens, right? If someone stops paying their rent, we know what happens. It's a pretty predictable trajectory right up to, vacate. These guys are panicking about that at every single step because that's the unknown. Oh, it's a bit scary. So we want to keep them really involved. And then air crash investigations, they're skeptical, not to a psycho extent, but we want to keep them really involved. These guys, give them details of the process, give these guys details of every action that you're taking, keep them inside, help them dissect and analyse things as they go along. Can you guys recognise your landlords that might fall into particular categories? Yep. I know that I'm over here. For how I consume in most of the time, but when I'm working, who I am is irrelevant. When I'm working, I've got to work with what I've got, and so I always say that, like, to my girls in my team, I always say your job is to be vanilla, right? You're beige in this process, and you get to facilitate and carry other flavours and make them feel better. But no one doesn't like vanilla. Do you know what I mean? Like no one dislikes the colour beige. It's your job to adapt and understand that people don't want to be treated how you want to be treated necessarily. People want to be treated how they want to be treated. So in conflict, it really helps us, right? Because we need to understand where our landlords and tenants are at with what they want from us so far as communication. And that's just a really quick way to understand, how people want to work with us. Because the aim of the game here is it's not our conflict, is it? If it's either a tenant's problem or a landlord's problem. If we haven't done the right thing and missed our procedures and stuff like that, then we've got a problem, with our principals or, with our clients. We might lose the business, but it is always a tenant or a landlord problem, and we're just here to help guide them to make better decisions for themselves. So much misunderstanding can be removed with better information, but this, I guess, is about understanding how people are going to best receive that information. So that's most people, but it's not our most difficult people. And a really great website for resources in conflict resolution is the highconflictinstitute.org. And they deal with those 14% that I told you about. Because if you look at our model for conflict, things really go wrong at misunderstanding. We can't control when people lose their jobs, we can't control when tenants or owners' marriages break up, we can't control the rental market, we can't control the cash rate. So a lot of that is out of our control. We've got to control the response and what happens after that. And so misunderstanding is where things go wrong, and words and how we communicate are really, really important at that point in time to make sure these things don't escalate. So practice your words, read your words and understand. I always think, understand which words, like go through your Rolodex, like is this word going to, inflame the situation? Words are a means to meaning. Is a really key takeaway from this. So communication techniques, whether it's a normal, conflict that's arising, or whether we're dealing with someone that's really high conflict, there's an acronym in conflict resolution called EAR. The first letter of that E is for empathy. And so what we want to do is we're not going to agree or validate what that particular party is saying. But what we want to do is put ourselves in their shoes so that we can understand their perspective. Words are a mean to meaning. The word misunderstanding, right? The cure for a misunderstanding is an understanding. So conflict is about, having two sides, this fight. So let's get the perspectives from both sides. And the way that we do that is empathy. We're gonna listen to them. We're gonna give that person our attention. So attention is A. People just want to be heard, right? If they're upset, if they're under financial strain or emotional strain, giving someone the airtime just to talk and get it off their chest can be half the battle. If they feel like they're being obstructed or blocked, or they haven't got access to the right information, again, it just fuels that misunderstanding and moves it up to tension, and conflict soon becomes a crisis because people are just blocked and they can't go forward, can't go backwards. And then the last one is respect. This win or loss, right or wrong, or the rest of it. We're all just people, and we want to be heard, and we want to be listened to, and we want to be treated like normal human beings. We were chatting outside this morning about how tribunals are set up so that everyone can win. The legal rights in our lease contracts don't exist at tribunals. Who's been to tribunal and walked away and gone, I should just tear up the lease? Like, I didn't win. Should have won, didn't win, that was unfair. Yeah, everyone nodding? Yeah. And it's because it's not a tribunal's position to enforce legal rights. Their law, the enactment of these tribunals, gives them the power to make any reasonable decision and provide any reasonable remedy that it deems reasonable, taking into account all of the circumstances. If we're leaving it up to tribunals to give us righteousness and justice and help us win the fight, we're going to have a hard time, because that's just not what they're designed to do. So some education to owners about what relief can be expected from tribunals is really, really important.